Hello everybody, Zon Gets 134 here.
And as always, I'm Average Joe Squad.
And welcome back to another episode of Remember the Hyphen, the show where we look at comic books, movies, and everything in between. And welcome back once again to a month in Hell's Kitchen. We did take a detour with Blade, but that's just because we had to do that
That's
night.
more street level stuff, though. So
There's more street level stuff, yeah.
We could argue he's probably killed vampires in Hell's Kitchen.
And I'm sure he was actually a part of the Marvel Knights at some point. But anyway, we got something a little special here. We've got The Daredevil Omnibus by Frank Miller. I actually have the softbound versions with that have his whole regular run. Well, most of his regular run. They don't have the one where Daredevil tries to play Russian roulette with a bullseye. That's a real thing. Look it up. This here, however, includes a couple of the miniseries he wrote after that. And honestly, some of the best stuff he's ever wrote is in this book. And as an aside, this book is normally $100. I found this up in Erie in a place called The Exchange for $50. But basically, we're going to look at two stories in this. One today and then one next episode. But for this episode, we are looking at probably one of the most beloved and well-known of Frank Miller's works on Daredevil. That's right. I'm, of course, talking about Daredevil Born Again, written by Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli. And I'm sure if most of you have watched the TV show, particularly season 3, you're actually going to be familiar with a lot of the plot points in this. But yeah.
Sorry, I love looking at, like...
Yeah, no, that's the one thing about this omnibus. This thing is...
Because my Spider-Man ones do the same thing.
Yeah. So, basically... Yeah, to give it kind of a context, this story is actually taking place after more or less Frank Miller's run, which includes things like Elektra coming back into Matt's life and subsequently being killed by the hands of Bullseye, Daredevil beating Bullseye within an inch of his life and basically paralyzing him. He, of course, got better. I want to say that they gave him an adamantium skeleton to make him harder to beat. Of course, he no longer was with Karen at the time. He'd gone through several relationships. And all in all, he's at kind of a rough spot in this, which of course leads into the book. Now, before we kind of talk more about the story, what was your feelings on reading Born Again?
So this was, I think, in the pantheon of Marvel stories, like the real heavy hitters, the stuff everybody generally can agree on is like the best stuff.
Yeah.
I've always heard the name Born Again as like constantly being like, this is one of the best, this is one of the best.
Yeah.
I had never actually like sought it out and read it because I'm not too much of a Daredevil guy. I really like the stuff I've read from borrowing from you. I've really liked, but up to this point, I had never really read a bunch of his stuff.
Oh, you got to read one of the best ones too, where Matt goes into a random town and just beats the shit out of people.
God, I'm still trying to wrap my head around what the fuck that was, but anyway, Born Again was one of those ones that I'd always seen like mentioned everywhere.
Yeah. So
when you brought up the idea of reviewing it, I was like, okay, I'm fine with this because I kind of knew about it. But like actually reading it was honestly really interesting. Like I mentioned to you before we started talking, the art's kind of hit or miss for me with a lot of this stuff.
I think the best is definitely Born Again because I think it's pretty traditional.
Yeah. With the Man Without Fear mini, which we'll talk about
next episode.
Like the art on that was up and down for me a lot, but overall, I really enjoyed it. Oh, excuse me, I really enjoyed this. I thought the writing was actually pretty solid.
Yeah,
it didn't have a lot of the Frank Miller-ish crap that I don't like.
Yeah, well,
it was always kind of nice.
This is actually pre-Year One and pre-Dark Knight Returns, which is
I mean,
really
like I don't really like what he did with Karen, but like in terms of the stuff I've seen Frank Miller do that I really don't like, this was passable, I guess. Would be the right term.
I would agree. And to be fair, I want to say he wasn't the one that had Karen become a porn star and eventually a heroin addict. That actually was something that had been written into the books after he left.
Yeah.
Because he had actually written Born Again after he left his run on Daredevil. Because I want to say basically they were like, hey, Frank, Daredevil's kind of okay right now, but we were wondering if you'd maybe like want to write this mini series. And he came on to write it, and we might as well just get into the basically explaining the plot, because basically what happens is Karen Page, she'd actually not been in the book for like 7 years at this point. She left to become a movie actress. Basically, it's really messed up because Foggy found like a video and like he showed it to Matt and had to explain it to him, which I'm like, Foggy, this man has suffered enough, don't you think?
Yeah.
But basically, Karen, in an act of desperation because she's ran out of money and is desperate for one last fix, decides to sell the only thing she has left, which is, of course, Matt Murdock's secret identity as Daredevil. This, of course, gets to the Kingpin, and the Kingpin be like, well, I gotta know if it's true, so he decides to ruin Matt's life to the point where he fights the Kingpin. Unfortunately, he's tired, exhausted, and driven to paranoia, and is beaten within an inch of his life by the Kingpin. But the Kingpin, who doesn't want to get... Because this is also after the Kingpin had just finally gotten his organization back up again after the events of Gang War, has him thrown into the river in a car and made it look like it was an accident. But of course, Matt, being one of the hardest to kill motherfuckers in the history of fiction, escapes, and through a few more bad lucks is eventually found by this nun, and has to set about recovering and rebuilding his life from that. And that's basically more or less the book. Now, what do you think about the idea of the rebirth in this book and how it plays out?
Like, just in how, like, as broken as Matt is, like, his entire life's in shatters, he still finds a way to pick himself back up.
Yeah.
I think you'll agree with me on this. It's very Spider-Man-ish.
Yeah.
In a sense. Like,
although I think he gets put through a much rougher ringer than...
Yeah, he definitely does. But it's a very, like, for me, it kind of had, like, the same beats as a Spider-Man story, which obviously I enjoy a lot, but...
Yeah.
I thought it really showed just a lot of the stuff about what makes up the character in this. That even though he's lost, like, everything at that point, he still finds a way to get through it, basically.
Yeah. And I think really that's kind of true of, like, most Daredevil runs is, he's brought low or, something's happened in his life, and it's really impressive how much Matt can pick the pieces back up. I also find that, your opinion, did the Jesus imagery, like, seem a little too much, or do you think it kind of fit given, like, the story we're getting here?
I actually didn't notice any Jesus imagery.
Well, because the idea is this is, like, the death of Jesus and then, like, the resurrection.
I never noticed it, honestly.
Because, like, one of my favorites is when he's laying...
It's weird, because I usually can pick that stuff out.
Actually, do you care if I...
Yeah. I was, like, trying to read this magazine article in there.
No worries. There's actually, basically, when he's recovering in the church, actually...
in the church, okay.
Yeah, he actually is... If you look at the art... Well, actually, first of all, there's the Pieta. Probably one of the most well-known versions of La Pieta being used in comics is this of Sister Maggie holding a unconscious Matt in the church.
Let me put that flap over this just so I can come back to that. I do want to actually read that article.
No worries, dude.
It's one of those old Marvel Age magazines, which are always interesting.
But for those of you who don't know what the Pieta is, basically it's that right here. That is
okay. Yeah. Now that I'm looking at it, after you mention that,
isn't that really, really well done imagery right there? Like where he's like in the crucifixion pose and like the white that makes like a cross.
Now that I'm actually looking at it after you've mentioned it, I can definitely see that.
Yeah. But the Pieta basically is this picture of the Virgin Mary holding Christ after his crucifixion. It's used a lot. Probably the one most of you know is when Batman carries the Joker out of Arkham City at the end of Arkham City. but yeah, I really love the idea of Matt's rebirth, where he's been at his lowest point and he finds a way to live again, basically. So I also really think this is a really great piece that like does all of it like works with all the characters really well. What do you think of the Kingpin in this?
I'm glad everybody I know that's a hero has beaten on this fucking motherfucker at least at one point or another.
Yeah.
Because fuck the Kingpin.
No, I actually think this is a really good Kingpin story too, because I think it really shows what Kingpin is capable of. Because I think a lot of modern stories don't really get what he's capable of, unlike here, where like he has the ability to, he has the ability to get through the IRS to take all of Matt's money. He has government ties to get like stuff from the military. Like, dude has his hands in a lot of pockets.
Yeah, which I think works really well for that character, because it's like,
yeah,
when I think of the Kingpin and how much power that he holds, it's not just that it's like a criminal empire, it's everything. You know, you've got the politics in there, the foreign stuff. He has his hands in everything, which, again, it's why he basically is the
Kingpin of crime.
Yeah, because he has his hands in everything.
I also really loved the use of Ben Urich here. I actually really liked him like wanting to actually uncover it, because he knows Matt's Daredevil and he knows all this shit's bullshit. He's being that, and I actually really
like how Jonah was even like,
oh yeah,
okay.
Like that was really good. Like I actually think that's one of the better moments for Jonah, is actually, and it's in a Daredevil book of all things, where he actually tells Ben like, you cannot give up on this Kingpin story. We have the power to bring him down.
It has the power to ruin presidents.
Yeah, I was like, damn, Jonah.
Jonah believes in the power of the press, baby.
No, that was a really well. I also really love how that scene is like, how the colors are done were in that. So what'd you think of Foggy and his girlfriend in this throughout that? Because I really think this shows really how great of a friend Foggy is to.
Yeah. Other than that, I really don't have that much to offer. He doesn't really do much other than that in the story.
I do really like that he manages to keep Matt from going to jail. At least he tries as hard as he can as a defense attorney.
Yeah, like that part I really liked, is that he basically, he fought hard for that, basically.
Yeah, which makes me really sad when later, when like Matt is so paranoid, he actually thinks that Foggy's also on the take. What'd you think of Sister Maggie, his mom? Well, that we find out later.
Again, like I don't really have much to offer, because she didn't. Other than the couple scenes she was in, she's not. I don't really know that much about her.
That's fair. I guess we could talk about the part that I know some people have issues with, just because it kind of comes out of nowhere. What did you think about the stuff with Nuke and Captain America? That's just
I was like, when he showed up, I was like, who the fuck is this?
Yeah. I actually want to say this is one of the first stories to actually introduce Nuke.
He's fought Cap at one point, right? That was that big panel I always see on the internet with, it's like, where Cap's talk about like, my grand ancestors were Irish. Like, is that the same guy? Okay.
That's the same guy.
That's the only other thing I've ever seen this guy in.
He might be a different Nuke, but so for those of you who don't know who Nuke is basically a super soldier experiment, where the government was trying multiple times to make super soldiers over the years. Nuke basically was made to be as strong and as powerful as Cap, but to keep him going, they give him these different pills, each colored red, white, and blue, because patriotism, symbolism. Blue and white basically keep him docile, and they give him the reds to basically get him all hopped up on like a steroid. And basically the Kingpin hires him so that he can kill Daredevil. Unfortunately, Nuke's a little unstable, and he proceeds to shoot up Hell's Kitchen. Although, also, did you love seeing the panel of I'm not loyal to anything, General, except from the dream that's from this?
I was like, oh my god, fucking. God damn.
I think it was kind of weird how they kind of imply that this at this point Cap doesn't know that they tried to keep recreating him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't know that? It's been like 20 years since you've been on Thawne.
Steve, my man.
Yeah.
You should have known.
That makes
this kind of stuff would happen.
I really do like the stuff with Cap. I think it's some of the better stuff. Just because I like the Cap like even actually tries to help Daredevil. What did you think of the issue where Daredevil fights Nuke?
Did I read that one? Because here's the thing, I only read up to a point because Wiki said that was where it ended.
Well, but basically,
because I didn't read past. Okay, yeah. So this is where I stopped basically because I was like, this is Wiki said that's where it ended.
Yeah, where him and yeah, that's where it ends. That's the end of. Yeah, like the basically the part where like Nuke shoots up Hell's Kitchen. What'd you think of that? Like that whole.
I was like, okay, comes out of left field.
Yeah. But I really liked like the descriptions and stuff in it, and like Daredevil fighting. Like I like that they show that like Nuke's kind of out of his league, but like Matt tries anyways and actually holds his own pretty well. Like that, and I also really love the scene of the fucking Avengers actually being fucking useful.
For once.
where Iron Man's like, let him go, son. And Thor actually like creates like a thunderstorm to put out the fire. Which Nuke should be lucky that Cap and Iron Man got to him before Thor. Because I'm pretty sure Thor would have straight up murdered him.
Probably.
I'm pretty sure Thor would have been like, that was no soldier. That was. But no, that. Yeah, there's also some really fucked up shit in here. What do you think of some of the more fucked up shit in this? Like the part where like the nurse like.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
Yeah. It's really gritty, isn't it?
Yeah.
That or poor Ben Urich having to pistol whip a dude to death. That shit was rough, and poor Ben is like
motherfucker's gonna need some therapy.
Yeah,
some
poor
serious
Ben.
Fucking therapy.
Poor Ben just goes through the ringer in this. Now, what did you think of like the dialogue or how it's like narrated and stuff? What were your thoughts on that?
You mean like when it was Matt?
Yeah, or like just like the narration in general, like the kind of noir style that's written in it.
It's okay. I'm not a very, very big noir guy, so like, I mean, in the context of how they're doing the story here, it works. Yeah. I'm not sure I would like to see more of it in like another story, because as much as it works in this story, that to me, that kind of a storytelling like thing, it gets old very quickly.
Yeah, it's better for small doses. I actually would agree with you. Like now, would you say that it's too wordy? Because I was surprised at how kind of a fast read this is, despite having like a lot of text.
I actually thought that too, honestly, when I was reading it. Like, because like I actually read all of Born Again. I read that all in like hour and almost 2 hours. Like I woke up one day and just read it. Like
it's 6 issues, but it doesn't really feel like it. It goes really fast.
I thought that might have been my ADHD playing up with how fast I was going through it. I was like, am I skipping shit? Like.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very, very fast read, definitely.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of some other stuff because I don't want to just tell the story because like I think you should you really do yourself a disservice to not read the whole thing. Now we've talked about a lot of the positives. Do you have any like negatives you want to talk about real quick? I wouldn't mind hearing them because I'm willing to be fair.
I don't like the stuff with Karen. To me, it comes off very much as Frank Miller once again hates women.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I think it's about as tasteful as he could have done at the time, but I do get where you're coming from. It does seem kind of like messed up that like they did that to Karen. Like, because for the record, like people actually were really pissed that they were gonna have Karen in the Netflix show because of that. So they actually had to write it that like Kingpin figures out Matt's identity a different way, and they make it seem like Karen thinks she told the Kingpin, but in actuality, the Kingpin just did it to like make sure he knew he was right. So I'm actually really glad they didn't go the way they did here. I also kind of think it's kind of hilarious they have it that she just overcomes heroin cold turkey, where like she basically has to be in like this like apartment that Matt and her have, and like she's.
I mean, that's actually very common.
I mean, it is, but like heroin's not one of those drugs you really, realistically, you can't just quit cold turkey. Unfortunately.
Yeah, you can. John Lennon and multiple people have done it.
No, it's very hard.
It is, but it's not
because opium, like more or less, once you're addicted to it, it's kind of for life sort of thing.
I mean, it depends. Like and again, I'm giving cases I know where that has happened. John Lennon did it. Eric Clapton did it.
Yeah.
There's a couple others at least that were able. So it is possible. It's very hard, but it's not totally unrealistic that happens.
I also kind of feel it's a little disappointing that we really don't get to see Daredevil like be like actually get to have like a victory in battle. Like the only reason he manages to even have like come close to taking out Nuke is at the end when Nuke gets shot by like an assassin. And even then, like, Daredevil doesn't even get to make it so that he can have Nuke tell the story about what they've done to him. Well, they do get to... I mean, granted, that still ends pretty well. The other is, the ending's kind of weird to me. Like, I like the ending where, like, him and Karen get to live happily ever after, but, like, he doesn't, like, reconcile with Foggy. He doesn't get his practice back. He just kind of seems to be doing better, and that's... Which I guess maybe that's kind of the point, you know, is, like... You know, Matt's living a pleasant life. It doesn't like it's sad that he doesn't get his practice back, but at least he's with Karen and he gets to live happily ever after. The other thing, if I may, do we really need to see the Kingpin in different Speedos, like in his fucking gym, just all the time? We see him in like 7 different fucking Speedos.
What's the matter, Adam? Are you afraid to get wet?
I'm sorry, Vanessa, but the Speedo stays on during sex. That was really weird, though, right? Like we see him work out like every single chapter, and I'm like, jeez.
Well, Daredevil's out here doing shit.
Yeah,
Kingpin is training.
Now, do you actually believe that like this is kind of a believable way that like Kingpin pretty much like sees his empire fall apart? Just because he's like spending all this money just fucking with his one dude.
I think it's realistic. I mean, it shows like as much as there's an obsession with Matt in this of beating Kingpin, you know, because you know when the paranoia is really hitting him the most, and he's thinking, if I beat Kingpin up, I can get my life back. You know, you could almost say that that's the yin to the yang of the Kingpin.
Yeah.
Where the Kingpin is so obsessed with beating Daredevil, he doesn't care how much money he spends or how blind an eye he turns to everything else within the empire he has.
Yeah. Because, like, damn, like, I'm kind of surprised, like, he even had any subordinates by the end of this, with the way he, like the one dude he has set up for a ski accident where both his legs get
Compound
broken.
fracture of both legs. I was like, what the fuck,
or the dude he straight up just snaps his neck and be like, anybody else got anything to say? Also, fun fact, that Wesley guy, he only had the name Wesley in this. He didn't get a full name until the Netflix show.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, he was invented. Well, I mean, granted, he was invented in this, but he was the Kingpin's right hand man for basically the rest of the time after this. What'd you think of Turk, the guy that with the Santa's outfit? He's actually a recurring character in Daredevil.
Glad he got his ass beat.
Yeah, me too. Don't worry, he gets his ass beat a lot because Daredevil basically just uses him as as a patsy a lot of the time. He showed up in the Ed Brubaker run I was reading, where he was sent to prison. I'm trying to think of some other stuff. How about the fact that I basically have given you 3 Daredevil stories and each one of them goes into his origin?
Yeah, the next time you loan me something, if the origin's in it, I'm like, I ain't reading this again. I've read it 4 fucking times now. It's getting to be like watching Bruce Wayne's parents get shot. I want to see it again. I know what happens. You don't need to show me.
I do apologize for that. It's just the good stories I had that I wanted to introduce you into. It just kind of rolled that way.
No, I just noticed that, and I was like, I swear to fuck, if I see him, if I see this again, one more goddamn time,
and then we watched.
I'm gonna read the summary and move on.
We watched it in the movie too.
Yeah, it's like I've had enough of this, man.
Like, damn.
No more of his fucking origin and shit.
To be fair, I get why they show the origin here because it's to show that he knows that Maggie's his mother.
No, I get it. It's
like I said, I only realized that after I was like, oh god damn it, I made this poor bastard read this origin like 4 fucking times. I didn't mean to. It was just how it ran out.
I don't want to hear you complain about X-Men month again.
No, that's
because
fair.
of this.
No, if I get you to read anything else, I'm pretty sure I'd like to let you read the Brubaker one, but thankfully they don't bring up his backstory. But yeah, that in my opinion, I think that it works here just because again, like I said, it has ties to the fact that Matt has met his biological mother, even though she lies to him and says that she's not. But of course, Matt can hear his heartbeat. I also really, really do love the way they show Matt's paranoia, where he knows that a lot of the paranoia is not real, but like eventually he just gets so desperate and low that he can't help but be like paranoid. Like that scene where he calls Foggy, and then it turns out he's just listening to the operator tell the time. That I was like, wow, that's really fucking rough. That like he's like, no, Foggy, I just want to know, I'm sorry, everything's gonna be all right once I fight the Kingpin. Thanks, Foggy. And I'm like, damn, dude.
He's fucking losing it.
The other thing is, if there's any issue that I think was a little needlessly complicated, was that one where the pimp that wants Karen runs into the insane asylum dude that they put inside Matt's costume.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is a little much. I mean, granted, the fact that like Daredevil beats that dude up and takes the costume and leaves him stripped naked was pretty good.
Yeah.
It actually references something later on in the Born Again miniseries. But yeah, I really enjoyed Born Again. It's kind of funny how much of this also showed up in the Daredevil movie too. Like, like the fact that like I want to say Wesley actually is in that movie, but also just like the idea of Matt being at his lowest points and picking himself up again. That was kind of a running theme with him. Do you have anything you want to add?
No, not really. Like I said, I thought it was a very good read. It's a quick one, so it wasn't like you handed me a tome and said, "Here, read this."
I mean,
and then I would have looked at you and been like, "Are you on fucking crack?"
I mean, technically, I did. Give it.
Not compared to. Boy. Have you seen my Clone Saga one? If I handed you that, both volumes said, "Here, read this. I want to review this," you would probably be like, "What are you smoking?"
Yeah.
I'm like,
I just realized they use this nurse that let Nurse Enforcer. She was in the Trial of the Incredible Hulk. She's the lady that attacks that dude that's trying to get Banner on. She's from this.
I haven't seen Trial of the Incredible Hulk, so I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
That's the one where Daredevil shows up and they have this nurse.
Okay, so I was like, holy shit! I was like, what is he talking about? I've never watched that.
Which is weird because that's also where Daredevil's in a black leotard way before Frank Miller would do that in 1993. Which I'm like, I'm just realizing how much comic books is a fucking Ouroboros of just constantly referencing each other. Although if I have anything, that shot where Matt's behind the flames and it says Armageddon. Holy shit, that is a fucking poster. That is a metal fucking poster.
Why is that not a movie poster?
Right? Also love
that was a movie poster. I'd go see that shit.
Yeah. Also love that shot where Matt finds Karen in the rubble after the apartment blows up, and Karen's like, Matt, am I dead? No, honey, you're not dead yet. I gotta go. I know you're gonna need this, and she pulls in the Daredevil costume. I'm like, that was really cute. I also kind of love the fact that Matt's somehow able to be a great cook despite being blind. And I'm like, how the fuck do you do that?
Scent.
Yeah, no, I know it's by scent, but like
it's definitely by scent.
I was more like, did the chef be like, you're blind? Yeah, why do you ask? Not a reason. Because like, damn. I do love the diner scene where like he overhears Foggy and Ben and how they're doing. But yeah, like that was like you would agree, right? The weirdest part, like we don't see like Matt pick up the pieces of like getting his his.
Yeah, it all happens off screen basically.
Yeah, that basically like the next several writers actually basically go through and kind of pick those pieces up. Now, if you were to say this, like watch this as like a movie, what would you say you would like to see them do with it? If they, like what you would change or maybe what you'd keep?
I honestly don't know if I'd want to see them do a movie because I don't think they would be able to do it effectively. With this story, like I think so much of it is tied to the art and the very noirish way they tell things, and I know damn well they would not be able to replicate that.
Yeah,
because the MCU has demonstrated they don't know how to do that shit.
That's fair. If it were me, to be honest, I think the TV show did this arc so well. Like they even fixed some of the shit like that, like people didn't like the stuff with Karen. I don't know if I would really want to see it in a movie. I especially don't know. They would have to change the ending completely. I'd probably have it like be Bullseye that goes after Matt. Yeah. Because that would make more like Gladiator, like someone that would actually make like tie to Daredevil. Maybe even have it that like it would just be Daredevil confronts the Kingpin again after he's gotten his life back in order.
Yeah.
Akin to like the ending of the Ben Affleck movie where he beats the shit out of the Kingpin. And, you know, just so he can be like, I beat you! AKA the best scene of all of Daredevil Netflix show. He's just watching him beat that fat fuck. Remember that year, the year of everyone beating that fat fucker on TV?
Everybody beating the Kingpin? Yeah, I remember that shit.
That was a good year. Yeah, but like I said, I don't know if I'd really want to see it as a movie. I'm curious to see if, you know, when they finally make the TV show for Disney Plus, that they do anything from this again. Because you know they're going to do it again. Because it's like one of the most popular stories of Daredevil. But yeah, like I said, we probably could make this episode longer if we talked about the whole plot, but like the plot is so well written and packed in. Like I dare, like, especially because, you know, if you're watching this, you've probably read this already. Like
and if you haven't, go read the fucker immediately. Put the video down. Click the X up here in the corner. Go read.
It's also really easy to find on Amazon. You can find it pretty anywhere because they constantly release
been reprinted in 1,000 different formats.
I don't know if you'll be able to find this omnibus because, like I said, this was I think this omnibus
might be out of print.
Yeah, this is out of print, and I got it as a steal. I got it for $50 or instead of the 100 its cover price. But yeah, like I said, I think this is a really great story. If you don't know where to start with Daredevil, I think it's a really good place to start. Either that or maybe Daredevil Yellow, because I think Daredevil Yellow does a really good job of giving you more or less the early days of Daredevil. Even the fact that he's in his classic yellow and black suit. But if you really want to see something like that, I would recommend it. I actually think this is... Would you agree this is a really great piece to read with, like, alongside, like, The Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen? Because I think that it's pretty good too. Like
I don't really know if I'd pair them with it, like, and read them back to back.
That's fair.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's definitely one.
The way I read stuff, I go all over the place. I don't read stuff back to back. Like
that's fair. I just think it's like it's at least up there with the two of them because I think this is like one of the defining pieces of this era. You know, kind of like, even though it is leading into the Dark Age, I think it's definitely one of the Bronze Age's best showings, if I were to say it that way. Because it's out of like Batman: The Dark Knight Returns and technically Year One or Watchmen, this is in continuity, which says something. But yeah, the only other book I'd say this technically ties into would be Daredevil Guardian Devil. Because I do feel Daredevil Guardian Devil is kind of like almost a direct sequel to this. Except that I actually kind of get pissed at Kevin Smith for killing Karen in that. But overall, I like I said, I recommend it. It's really easy to pick up. Yeah, so I think that's going to tie it up for this one. Because, like I said, there's not really much to say here. I don't want to spoil it. Go read it yourself. As a whole, I'd say it's a solid 8.5 out of 10. I think it's a really well done book. If I were to say anything, I think the last couple issues get a little comic booky at the end, like kind of zany. But overall, I think it's a perfectly written story. Your rating?
I'm rating out of 10. I'm gonna give it an 8. Because like I said, I really enjoyed it. It's Frank Miller without being extremely Frank Miller-ish and making me want to jump off a roof.
Yeah.
Because I don't like Frank Miller. But yeah, definitely an 8 out of 10. The story's really, really solid. The art, when it's good, is really, really good. And overall, it's a very quick read, so you can slam it out in like at least 2 hours, if that.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, guys, I'm sorry this one's a little short, but I didn't want to really go into the story beats. I think, you should read it for yourself. But hopefully the next one will be pretty good too, as we look into the 1993 miniseries that more or less is the modern origin for Daredevil that, like, I don't think really they've touched very much. So come back next week, guys, when we look at Daredevil, the Man Without Fear. But until then, guys, I'm Zongetsu134.
And I'm Average Joe Squad.
And as always, we ask you,
remember the hyphen?
and take care.